It's Monday, November 22nd, 2010. In this week's BeakerBeat, layoffs, restructuring, and cost-cutting, oh my. Big players making big announcements on staffing and spending. Plus, while the FDA makes up its mind on the biosimilar issue, the Europeans actually make a decision. And the internet is still an untapped resource for many in the life sciences biz. All that and more in this week's edition of BeakerBeat. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of BeakerBeat. I'm Mike Justice, thanks for tuning in. Well, it is Thanksgiving week. It's our favorite holiday here in the States because we excel at the two things that happen on that holiday: overeating and football. First, here's our top story. Then later, a football game. This isn't the best way to start off the holiday season. Thousands will be home for the holidays as Roche and Bayer both announce massive layoffs. As anticipated, Roche is making massive worldwide job cuts across all areas of its business, with 4,800 jobs, or about 6% of its worldwide workforce, being trimmed over the next 2 years. Also, the Swiss company plans transfers of about 800 jobs internally and 700 positions to third parties, bringing the total number of affected jobs to 6,300. Sales and marketing and manufacturing jobs will be hit the hardest with over 2,600 cuts there. However, the company plans to grow its Chinese workforce by 25% this year alone, or about 750 new jobs. Roche is reorganizing some of its manufacturing sites and plans to sell sites in Florence, South Carolina and Boulder, Colorado, which currently employ 600 people. It's also consolidating 3 sites in its diagnostics division. Roche says the restructuring will save about $2.7 billion a year through 2012 and $2.4 billion after that. Meanwhile, Bayer, Germany's largest drug maker, plans to cut 2,000 people from its global workforce. That number will grow to about 4,500 jobs by 2012. The $1.4 billion cost-cutting program is aimed at bolstering product development. On the positive side, over the same time frame, the company plans to create 2,500 new jobs, partly to help fuel expansion into Asia. Not to be outdone, Novartis is employing cost-cutting and productivity improvements to help the company focus more on R&D and emerging markets. Although the company declined to name a figure, execs did say Novartis will cut sales and marketing spending, streamline procurement, and review its manufacturing footprint. Plus, the Swiss drug maker will increase investments in the emerging markets of China, Russia, Brazil, and India. The job moves resemble Eli Lilly's. Last year, you may recall, the U.S.-based drug maker announced plans to reduce its workforce by 5,500 while it doubles its roster in China and hires in other emerging markets. So tell us what you think about this story or any story. It's very simple. Click on the orange button below the video box. A box will pop up. Type in your comment. Send it to us. We promise we'll read and respond to every one of them. And when you're done watching BeakerBeat, check out Beaker's blog, where we analyze a blog post that has sparked a furious debate raging amongst HR and life sciences professionals on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. What is more important, an employee's free will or a company's right to protect their most valued asset? Join the discussion on Beaker's blog. So, who's ready for a big post-Thanksgiving game of football?
Me!
Here, take it, run! European regulators have adopted a guideline on biosimilar antibody drugs. The industry can expect the publication in a couple of weeks. However, many experts are predicting a cautious approach, which could require separate clinical trials for different diseases addressed by the same antibody. As Reuters notes, such testing could drive up the costs of producing biosimilars, and that could make it hard for smaller companies to compete. If costs are too high, only big, well-established players like Teva, Novartis, and Hospira may be able to bring such products to market. Meanwhile, the South Korean government just pledged to promote the biosimilar industry. They hope to take 22% of the global market by 2020. Stop me if you've heard this before. J&J is involved in another recall. The bright side here is, this time J&J wasn't the company overseeing production. Polyester-like particulates were found in vials from 2 batches of Velcade, a blood cancer treatment. Velcade is marketed outside the U.S. by a J&J unit and sold in the U.S. by Millennium, which is now a unit of Japan's Takeda Pharma. A Takeda spokesman told Bloomberg that the company is fixing a manufacturing problem. 6 lots of Velcade were recalled in Europe and Japan. 7 lots in the U.S. will be recalled as a precaution. Football! Jerk my back. Time for some quick hits now, and Thousand Oaks, California-based Amgen will be enjoying the holiday after getting approval for a new cancer indication for the bone drug denosumab. The drug was approved in June as an osteoporosis treatment and sold under the brand name Prolia. Now the drug has the FDA's blessing for fracture prevention in certain cancer patients. The second indication, to be marketed as Xgeva, could boost sales to as much as $2.4 billion by 2015. Denosumab also has the potential for another use. The company is studying the drug's potential for keeping skin cancer out of bone, with data expected later this year. That third indication could add another $500 million to the bottom line. KV Pharmaceutical, which has faced a number of challenges over the past couple of years, has tapped Greg Davis as its permanent CEO. The news comes at the same time the company announced that former company CEO Mark Hermelin has resigned from its board of directors. Human Genome Sciences' Benlysta won a solid majority of an FDA advisory panel vote. Panelists voted 13-2 to endorse the therapy and recommend its approval. If the FDA agrees, it will be the first new lupus drug in half a century. Despite the overwhelming margin, there were doubts of Benlysta's efficacy. The FDA staff had earlier noted that the data on the drug appeared to support a case for only marginal efficacy, but most panelists seemed eager to give lupus patients access to something that could offer hope in battling the symptoms of the disease. HGS, who has partnered with GSK, now has a potential blockbuster on its hands. Revenue could exceed $2 billion a year. A new study could lead to billions in sales for several stent manufacturers. According to a European study of 2,300 patients, drug-coated stents from Johnson & Johnson and Abbott Labs proved to be as safe as bare metal stents in preventing death and heart attack after 2 years in patients with narrowed large coronary vessels. Previously, there were questions about safety for those patients, but the study could change the minds of many doctors globally. Merck's closely watched cholesterol drug garnered, quote, jaw-dropping results from investigators in charge of the trial. The drug, named anacetrapib, showed an incredible 138% increase in good cholesterol and a 40% drop in bad cholesterol among patients already taking statins. Another important note, researchers said that there were no serious side effects recorded during the 18-month trial, with fewer patients experiencing serious heart problems than those in the placebo group. The drug is billed as a potential blockbuster, but is still miles from the finish line and probably won't make it to the FDA before 2015. Checking money matters now, and while Cambridge, Mass-based Genzyme continues to fight off a hostile takeover bid, the company has decided to sell. Tokyo-based Kisui Chemical has agreed to pay $265 million in cash for Genzyme's diagnostic products business, and Genzyme will use the money to support its $2 billion stock repurchase. As part of the deal, the 575 employees in the diagnostics unit have been offered jobs, and the company says it will keep the business in Cambridge. LabCorp is offering $925 million in senior notes to help fund part of its purchase of Genzyme Genetics. That deal, at $925 million in cash, was announced in September. Healthcare supplier Cardinal Health plans to buy New York's Kinray for $1.3 billion in an all-cash deal. The company expects to complete the transaction this year or early 2011. Whitestone, New York-based Kinray is a distributor of both branded and generic medicines and primarily operates in the New York City area with annual revenue of more than $3.5 billion. The deal will increase Cardinal's retail independent pharmacy base by 40% to about 7,000. It will also boost distribution of generic drugs, which are more profitable than brand-name therapies. The UK's BTG plans to acquire biocompatibles for about $242 million. With the deal, BTG gains access to biocompatibles oncology products, which include drug-coated beads that treat liver cancer. So much for a game of football. The internet's working out great for Google and eBay and BeakerBeat viewers, not so much for pharma companies. A study of about 1,000 patients released by Accenture finds that while 68% report turning to the internet for health information, only 11% of them seek out pharma-sponsored drug and disease websites. Instead, consumers are much more likely to use social media sites, online communities, and news or government sites. Now, that is a terrible result, and obviously pharma companies need to do more to reach the public. Accenture recommends that pharma companies upgrade their websites to create a more interactive experience and establish a dialogue with customers. The problem is drug makers fear violating FDA guidelines. Until the FDA puts out a firm set of rules that make sense, don't look for any big changes online from drug makers. This is more like it. This is how you spend Thanksgiving. That's it for this week's edition of BeakerBeat. I'm Mike Justice. Thanks for watching. Have a great holiday. We'll see you next week. Sit, Beaker. Sit. Good dog.
One of these days, Lila, he's going to be as tall as you or taller.
So, I'm still going to be taller than him.
So he might be taller than you.
Mommy!
He's going to remember when you wouldn't let him have the ball.